Hi, I'm Ken Christian, and I'm author of Your Own Worst Enemy, Breaking the Habit of Adult Underachievement, and founder of the Maximum Potential Project. And I work with people like recruiters, sales professionals, people who are writers, anybody who wants to achieve more. I work with them to get rid of their self-limiting habits and beliefs so that they can achieve the kind of life that they really want, the kind of success they really want financially and in their relationships and in deep satisfaction. See if any of these challenges sound familiar to you. I'm going to tell you about 5 of them. Here's the first one. Are you one of those people who always gets excited when there's something new and juicy and interesting and creative to do, but you kind of stall when it gets to the down-to-earth, sort of day-to-day, more boring things that you have to do? It presents a major obstacle to actually achieving. Here's a second one. Maybe you're a person who doesn't just snap up new things, but you do have a lot of interests. But what you do is, instead of really settling into the big thing that you want to do, you do some small things, some interesting things, but they're not really at the heart of what you want to do. And so the challenge is that you hopscotch from one thing to another and keep yourself busy, but you never get to the really important thing that you'd like to do. That's a challenge. Number 3, you want something. You know you really want something. You have a clear idea of what it is. You're not confused. It's not like you're waiting for something to come along, but the thing that you want to do seems so important. In a way, you start to say to yourself, what if I fail? And you don't want to fail, and so you postpone and you put off and put off. You think, geez, you know, I don't know if I can actually do that. You're not able to make the concept you have of yourself fit that big challenge that you want to do, and so you get into a cycle of postponing and you never move, you never act. You can't get anywhere without acting. 4th challenge. It's the opposite of the one I just talked about. Instead of hesitating and postponing, you become a plunger. You do things half-cocked. You fly off into one adventure or another and you crash and burn, and then prove to yourself you couldn't do it. But the only thing you really lacked was being a systematic planner and preparing well. That's a challenge. I don't know if you faced that one. Let me go to the 5th one. Here's the 5th one. You start down the path and you get going and you actually gather some momentum, but you start to worry. Wait a minute, what if I actually do this? What if I'm a success and now everybody wants more of my time, or they expect more of me? I don't know if I can handle that, all the challenges that are going to come with the actual success I might achieve. So if you resonate with those challenges, let me tell you my story. I just wanted to have fun. I was a kid with a lot of energy, a lot of curiosities, a lot of interests. I could be fascinated by many, many things, so I was never bored for brief periods of time, but I would always go on to the next thing. So I was kind of like that person who was a big start and then not so enthusiastic after that. When I did get to college, though, I got interested in psychology. Right from the beginning, I started making the highest grades in the class on all my exams. And I said, you know, Ken, you're pretty fascinated by that, but you got to get a doctorate in order to do that. I said, okay, I'll get a doctorate. Something important enough or interesting enough or fascinating enough did help me get going. And that was one key thing to solving the puzzle of all the challenges. But more came along the line, because even though I was able to write a dissertation, later on, and I'm going to tell you more about this, when it came time to write my book, the one I already told you about the title of, wow, I couldn't even conceive of sitting that long and doing a challenge that long and working and dealing with the setbacks over time, because it wasn't my style. So I found a way to do it, and I'm going to tell you about it. Okay, so it's a little farther down the line when I start to really face the challenge that my particular temperament and style was putting me up against. And let me tell you what happened. I go into private practice after getting my doctorate, and I have an interesting practice in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I at some point start to notice, because I'm working with families, that a lot of them are coming in and they're saying they've got smart kids who aren't doing much in school. Oh, wow. caught my attention. I didn't like it. I hated to hear that these kids were wasting their potential, because in some way inside me I knew that I had wasted part of mine. I'd gone through too many casual experiences until I got to college and started focusing. And these kids were in high school and they weren't doing it yet. And I didn't want them to miss out. I didn't want them to have to backtrack and try to make up for it later, because you know what happens? Some people that everybody say are going to be late bloomers never bloom. And I could have been in that category, except for some things that happened in my practice after I started realizing this problem with these kids. What I did is I started looking into the research on what had happened to the kids who were called academic underachievers. And you know what? There really weren't any treatment programs that sounded like realistic solutions to me at all. So I created a new kind of situation, a whole new way of dealing with the problem. And bazoom, this program I developed, the Maximum Potential Project, just took off. Kids going through this program in 14 weeks, their grade point average on a 4-point scale, and I'm talking now only about the academic subjects, went up 0.6 of a grade point in 14 weeks. But I wasn't satisfied that that was a real solution, because during that 14 weeks, they were in a kind of situation with rah-rah and cheering and encouragement and so on. Nothing about their academics, just about how to search for what they really wanted in life and to make real choices and take personal responsibility for where they were going. And they resonated to it, and they got this 0.6 of a grade point improvement. I wanted to know what happens 6 months later when we're no longer involved. Bingo, 6 months later, their grade points are up 0.8 of a grade point. And I didn't just work with the kids, I worked with the parents too. Well, now, the word gets out and everybody's excited about this new project I'm doing, and I'm having a great time, and I go on to the NPR affiliate in San Francisco, KQED, and I'm interviewed about the Maximum Potential Project. And in fact, for I think it's 6 more times I went on this program, but the very first time I was on, an adult guy called in, and he wasn't calling in about his kids. He said, look, I was that underachiever when I was a kid, and I'm still underachieving. Can you help me? And so then I designed a program for adult underachievers too, and it took off, and it was very successful. Now, at some point, this idea that I need to get the word out about this starts to ferment in my brain, and I'm thinking, I've got to write a book, I've got to write a book. And I talk to friends about I've got to write a book, and I keep postponing writing the book. And I don't get down to it. I just keep talking about it. But at some point, I got some advice. Somebody said, put your butt in a chair and start working on it. And that was the beginning of a sequence of events that led to my learning all the techniques to get around all the challenges. And here's the result. This is my book. And I've now co-authored another book on An Invitation to Personal Change with Diane Hales, and I've got a workbook out for people too called Breakout, and it's for people who want to break out and achieve more. So how does this apply to you? Well, let me tell you how it applies to you. Now, in the time since the book was published, I have actually had the thrill of working with all kinds of people and practically applying the things that are in the book. Also, my book is translated into 5 foreign languages. I mean, I could not have imagined when I started that project that I could ever get there. But when I worked with people, what I realized is there's a lot of myths out there, a lot of mistaken information about what you have to do if you want to move in a new direction. And moving in a new direction involves changing some things, and that's part of what gets people sideways, because changing is hard work. And it doesn't feel that good in the beginning. But if you are efficient and you have good information instead of myths, then you're going to get somewhere a lot faster. So one of the myths that's out there is that people who accomplish things and are successful have very special abilities that I don't have. They were born with this gene that helps them do things, and it's all nonsense. It isn't about personal attributes. It isn't about their personal attributes or yours. Yeah, you might have a certain style of temperament. You might be more extroverted or more introverted, but it's a matter of skills. This is a skills versus talent dichotomy. You need to land on the side of skills. There's a series of skills that are learnable, and I can tell you what they are, and they're teachable. You can't just randomly start chasing things and doing things. You need a strong, clear framework for what you're going to do. You need to have focus that leads you down a path. I'm going to give you a 5-point focused framework. I call it the 5 M's. The first of the 5 M's is that you need absolutely to have a good mindset, a correct mindset. And with that mindset, I'm talking about not just goals and aspirations and a dream. I'm talking about you need clear information in your mind. You need to have a realistic idea of what the change process actually involves and how it unfolds and how long it takes. One of the biggest pieces of misinformation that plugs people's mindsets these days is the idea that they've heard that it takes 3 weeks to develop a new habit. Well, 21 days and you can have a new habit. 21 days is great for developing a new habit, like how to clip your nails the right way or remove your nose hairs. But it isn't going to help you transform your life if you've been somebody who's been chasing big ideas and running around and getting excited and then failing. Really, you need to understand that that takes 12 to 14 weeks or longer. So your mindset has to include good information. The next thing you need is you need to take measures. Measures. You need to do things. You need to have specific actions that you take. One of the measures you have to do is to give yourself focused time for really working on things. You're not going to do it. I couldn't write that book or even start until I sat down in a chair and got going in the morning, doing it, getting up early in the morning, which is unbelievable for me. But you have to take other kinds of measures, and I'm going to tell you exactly what those are over time. But the measures you need to take are actions. You can't just visualize success. You can't just follow that secret idea and get there. You've got to know what you're doing. Third thing you need to do is you need an absolutely clear method to your madness. You've got to have a map for where you're going. And the method you need includes specific steps that you follow. There's a protocol that leads you to success. Next, beyond the method, you have to have specific mechanisms to keep you on track. Let me tell you, one of the simplest ones I use is a timer. I time different blocks of time, knowing what they're going to be, and when I have the timer go off, then it tells me it's time to switch, take a break, or go to the next activity. And that leads me through my day. Finally, you need momentum. Here's the way to understand momentum. Your life already has momentum. But the way you change is not to make some heroic thrash where you blast against the whole world and you try to do multiple things at the same time. You need to incrementally move along and build your momentum, but part of building the momentum is to also change the direction of your existing momentum, because your habits have a lot of momentum. So you're going to change the trajectory and then slowly build momentum. That's the way to make permanent change. Okay, there are some common mistakes that you can make, and I want you to avoid them. The first mistake, we've already talked about it, it's postponing. Second mistake, multitasking. If you think you can make up for lost time by focusing on several things simultaneously, you are going to be dead in the water. Third thing is, you cannot go it alone if you're making a complex transformational change. It's crazy to do so. So here's what I want you to do, and you're actually going to love this. As soon as this video is over, I want you to do one thing that you've been postponing. One thing, large or small, one thing that's unfinished, I want you to do it. It can be tiny, but I want you to do that every day this week and every day from now on. It's a small step, but it builds momentum. And you're going to like the effect that it has on your life, because you can't postpone anymore. You've got to get going. And this is an easy, painless way to get going. It's a satisfying way to get going. You're going to like it, and it's only by breaking out and taking some risks that we can make a move toward the life that we deserve, the life of fulfillment, the life of that kind of achievement that provides a deeply satisfying experience. You're going to enjoy it.